What up, flockers? In this video, we're gonna review the Triton Cockatoo. Now, this is a massive cockatoo. I mean, you look at how huge this bird is compared to like my face. Look at it. It's so cute. You've probably seen these birds at like bird shows and zoos. And let me just tell you, the Triton Cockatoo is a massive bird to handle. Imagine giving a super hyper 5-year-old child wings. That's a Triton Cockatoo. These birds are absolutely insane, but they're so much fun. Right off the bat, it's a very interesting bird. I mean, it's a solid pure white, snow white color to it, and it has a nice, really cool yellow crest right here, which is so unique. And that's just what gives cockatoos their famous cockatoo look, is this super expressive little crest on top of its head. And that's actually where this Triton species kind of gets its name. You see, the Triton species is actually a subspecies of the Sulphur Crested Cockatoo. So they're very, very similar, not really enough to be its own separate species, but there is some differences that the Triton has genetically compared to a Sulphur Crest Cockatoo. And that mainly just comes down to where this cockatoo comes from. Whereas Sulphur Crest come from Australia, the Triton is going to be coming from the West Papouan Islands in Indonesia and also New Guinea. Now, in captivity, these birds are going to live about 40 years, which is definitely a very long commitment, but a little shorter than some of the other larger birds like macaws. And these birds are somewhat sexually dimorphic. It's a little difficult to tell, but females tend to have more of an amber colored eye, whereas males tend to have more of a dark brown kind of eye. But to really be sure, you're better off DNA testing in order to know whether you have a male or a female. Now, this baby Triton Cockatoo, yes, baby, it's going to get bigger, comes to us from Omar's Exotic Birds, which is my go-to bird store here in Southern California, and where I got the majority of my flock. And I love this place because they actually leave the birds out in the public like a petting zoo, so birds and humans learn to get along, which is just the smartest thing ever. While they did not sponsor this video, they were kind enough to loan me this parrot for their review, so for that, guys, thank you so much. Now, the main question is this parrot going to be the right parrot for you? And to break this down, we have our 6 categories, which are going to be handleability, quietness, talking ability, care, hardiness, and upfront costs. Now, my plan with this YouTube channel is to review every single parrot in existence. Seriously. So if you want to support my mission, please make sure you hit the subscribe button, because you aren't going to want to miss any videos. And if you find this video really valuable, please make sure you hit the like button for the YouTube algorithm, especially if you want more people to learn about how amazing the Triton Cockatoo is. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. First up is going to be handleability, and for handleability, I give the Triton Cockatoo a score of 2 out of 5. Now, let it be known, cockatoos are so extremely friendly, super affectionate. I mean, these birds are going to be an extremely clingy girlfriend that's never going to want to leave you. They're very easy to handle. They're cuddly. They love playing. They love hugs. Right, baby? You just love being hugged. They will stay on your shoulder, your arm. You can take them places. I mean, you can't get like any friendlier than a cockatoo. But that's kind of where things are misleading. You see, a lot of people end up getting a massive cockatoo because they interact with the pet store and they just see how friendly and how people friendly these birds are, and then they end up taking one home, but they don't realize that in the end of the day, guys, these are wild animals, and they are a massive wild bird. And that's where a lot of people, especially beginners, don't realize that this is not actually a beginner-friendly bird, and they're taking on a lot of bird. And what I mean by this isn't like taking home a big domesticated dog or cat. Parrots are wild animals, and they're extremely intelligent. And cockatoos are one of the most intelligent parrots you can get. When I say it's like a 5-year-old human child, I literally mean it. These birds are that smart. They have complex personalities. They have moods. They have a lot of energy. They're gonna want to be playing all the time. You practically have to get like a playpen for these birds. Just like you would a 5-year-old kid, you gotta give the kid a playroom with all his toys to like play around, play some Legos. You can't really contain a bird like this in a cage. So here's the thing about owning a big cockatoo. Birds are generally very moody animals, cockatoos especially. And as such, there's gonna be times where one morning your cockatoo may just be very hormonal and it just woke up on the wrong side of the bed that day, and you're gonna have a very pissy bird the entire day. And when you have a pissy flying pair of scissors in your home with this pretty big beak, it's a little spooky, not gonna lie. And that's just the thing with these big cockatoos. When you piss them off or they're just in a pissy mood, they can get pretty nippy birds. And when you have a giant nippy bird, it's going to be drawing blood. And as such, I really don't recommend this bird for beginners who, especially when you're a beginner, you don't really understand bird body language. And if you cannot read a cockatoo, which I will say are pretty easy to read because they have the crest, but if you can't read a bird's body language, you're going to end up hurting yourself. And you're going to end up just giving that bird more bad reinforcement, and then you're just gonna end up with a really mean bird. And that is the last thing you're gonna wanna have. And with these birds, if you do not handle them enough, they will turn nippy. These birds are going to need constant handling and constant attention. You have to let the bird be that clingy girlfriend, because the moment you try to cut off a clingy girlfriend, all hell breaks loose. And when you have a bird for the next 40 years of your life being that clingy girlfriend that you can't cut off, you're not gonna enjoy your life. And that's one of the big issues with these birds, is a lot of these birds end up getting rehomed, unfortunately, and they're very common to find in bird rescues. So if you're going to get this high maintenance of a bird, one of the best birds you can get if you can upkeep them, but if you can't upkeep it, you really have to be really careful if this is going to be the right bird for you. So while when you handle them, it's an absolute 5 out of 5, don't handle them correctly and you end up getting bit. That's one of the big reasons why I dropped this bird down to just a 2 out of 5. So it's definitely something you need to strongly consider. Now, next up on this list is going to be quietness, and for that, I give the Triton Cockatoo a score of 1 out of 5. Cockatoos are not quiet birds. In fact, they're extremely loud, and especially the larger ones like the Triton are going to be really loud. But just how loud are we talking, guys? A little fun fact, the movie The Jurassic Park, the original, when they were trying to create the T-Rex roar, one of the main sounds and recordings that they used to create the T-Rex roar was in fact a cockatoo. So yes, your house is going to turn into a jungle. If you live in an apartment setting, you will not be getting a cockatoo, because your entire apartment complex is going to know you have a cockatoo. If you are living in a nice suburb in a decently large home, your neighbors are going to know you have a cockatoo. They are one of the loudest birds you can possibly get. So if you are a person who likes peace and quiet, don't get a cockatoo. And that is another one of the big reasons as to why these birds get rehomed. They don't realize just how loud and frequently loud these birds are going to be. So definitely really consider if you're actually gonna want a loud bird in your home or not. But next up on this list is going to be talking ability. And for talking ability, the Triton Cockatoo gets a score of 4 out of 5. As general rule of thumb, the noisier bird is, the better talker they happen to be. And the Triton Cockatoo is a very talkative bird. These birds will talk a lot. They will memorize phrases, words, sounds, car alarms, whistles. I mean, you want a talking bird, you're gonna get a cockatoo. You see all the videos on the internet, And it's just cockatoos being loud and noisy and talking, getting arguments with their owners. You know, some will have potty mouths and they're just cussing up a storm, and their clarity is actually pretty good too. They do have a scratchy quality to it, so that's why I drop it down a score just a little bit to a 4 instead of a 5, but it's pretty much as good of a talker as you're gonna get for the vast majority of birds. If you want a talking bird, you get a cockatoo. If you don't mind the insane noise you're gonna have for the next 40 years of your life. Alright, so next up on the list is going to be care. And for care, I give the Triton Cockatoo a score of 2 out of 5. Like I mentioned with handling, this bird is going to be a very, very high maintenance bird. You're pretty much adopting a child. Now, unlike children who you kick out of the house when they're 18 or 20, a cockatoo you're gonna have for the next 40 years of your life. And these birds need a lot of attention, constant cuddling and handling. Absolute minimum is gonna be like 4 hours a day, but realistically you're gonna be spending like 8 hours a day or more. I mean, these birds need a lot of attention, and they're going to need to spend the vast majority of their time outside of their cage, and especially one with that needs this much amount of mental stimulation, because these birds are very prone to plucking issues. So you're really gonna have to put a lot of work into your Triton Cockatoo if you don't want a plucking issue to develop. So as such, what I recommend, you are going to have to absolutely buy the largest possible cage you can find. Give it a lot of space. And even then, that massive of a cage is going to just be a sleeping cage for this bird. Most of the time, you're gonna have this bird around your house. Secondly, you really need to constantly be cycling through toys nonstop. I mean, every like few weeks, swap out the toys. Constantly be cycling through things, rearranging the cage. Give it as much mental stimulation as you possibly can. Thirdly, I would check out like, you know, little play sets and things like that. And put them in places where there's a lot of visual stimulation. Places like your living room in your house. I would also recommend toys that encourage foraging exercises. So things such as getting a cardboard box and just stuffing it with seeds and like paper fillings and things like that, just to encourage foraging. Just pretty much everything in the rule book you can think of in order to keep these birds entertained, you're going to want to do that. And also, just to keep in mind, you do want to bird-proof your home. And I really hope you do not have any expensive furniture or expensive cabinets in your kitchen, because this bird is going to destroy your furniture. Because your house is going to be one large cage with a bunch of chew toys. And last but not least, when you're caring for these birds, cockatoos are extremely dusty birds. If you are hyperallergenic, you probably should not get a cockatoo. And also, you're going to be constantly cleaning your house, because these birds dust up a storm. Wherever their cage is, it's going to be very, very dusty. I strongly recommend things like HEPA filters throughout your house in order to keep the air quality in your home really, really good, so you don't end up developing allergies if you don't have an allergy already. But aside from all of that, it's not the super highest maintenance bird in the world, because at least diet-wise, they're pretty relatively easy to care for. You just give them a pellet diet, and you just give them fresh fruit and veggies every day, which is about standard care for the vast majority of parrots. It's just going to be a large quantity. As you have a larger bird, it's going to be eating a lot more. But aside from that, nothing too specific with its diet. Now, next up is going to be hardiness, and for hardiness, I give the Triton Cockatoo score of 5 out of 5. These big cockatoos are going to be very hardy birds overall. They can acclimate to all kinds of weather. In fact, even in Australia, cockatoos are a pest species. I mean, they're really hardy birds. And on top of that, this is going to be a very large bird. These birds will handle rough handling, and in fact, actually kind of like rough handling. So I'm not really concerned if you have like any grabby kids or anything like that. I'm much more worried about the kid pissing off the bird, and then the bird with its pretty big beak injuring the kid. So if you do have kids, I would always make sure to keep attention and make sure that the kid isn't doing anything that's going to piss off this bird, as cockatoos are going to remember that and they can end up hating some people. So definitely be very careful with that. Now, next up on this list is going to be upfront cost. And for upfront costs, I give the Triton Cockatoo a score of 1 out of 5. These birds are very popular and they're a very big bird. They're going to be very, very expensive. So these birds are going to be costing you a whopping $7,000. And frankly, the prices are only going to keep going up with inflation and the bird shortage happening. So these birds are going to cost you a very pretty penny. But if you're going to be spending $7,000 on a bird, everything else is probably going to be irrelevant to you. So yes, you're going to be spending a lot of money getting the biggest cage you can fit in your home. And that's going to cost you quite a bit of money, but probably not as big of a concern as getting the bird first and foremost. From there though, your upkeep is going to be pretty high because you're constantly going to be burning through wooden toys nonstop. These birds are super destructive and they need constant attention and constant mental stimulation. So that is something to keep in mind. So you're going to be spending a lot of money every single month on just toys. On top of that, you want to invest into things like a play set or two around your house so the bird can just be in different rooms with different sets of toys in those settings. But aside from that, the food isn't going to be too crazy. It's just going to be your pellet diet, fresh fruits and veggies. And you're definitely going to be spending a lot of money on food a month. It's definitely going to be an expensive upkeep, and that is something you strongly want to consider when you're keeping one of these birds. Now comes the final score of the Triton Cockatoo. Now, so far this video is really valuable. Please make sure you hit the like button to really help this video out in the YouTube algorithm. But to tally everything up, I give the Triton Cockatoo a score of 2.5 out of 5. They are overall absolute amazing birds to have. It's like literally having a family member in your house. I mean, you're practically adopting a child that's going to be living with you for the next 40 years of your life. But they are not beginner birds. I strongly recommend people who have had some kind of bird experience to get one of these birds. The time commitment is going to be absolutely insane, because if you really cannot provide the optimal environment for these birds, they're going to be prone to plucking issues and things, and you don't want that. You want a nice, friendly bird that isn't going to turn aggressive on you because it's not getting enough attention. But if you can keep up with this bird, it is going to be an absolute adventure keeping one of these. I can promise you that. And your life is going to change, hopefully for the better. And it's going to keep you entertained day in and day out. And if that sounds like the bird you want, the Triton Cockatoo may be the right parrot for you. So with that, guys, thank you so much for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.